Welcome to Brave New Bookshelf, a podcast that explores the fascinating intersection of AI and authorship. Join hosts Steph Pajonas and Danica Favorite as they dive into thought-provoking discussions, debunk myths, and highlight the transformative role of AI in the publishing industry.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Brave New Bookshelf. I'm one of your co-hosts, Steph Pajonas, CTO, CMO, I don't really know anymore, of Future Fiction Academy and Future Fiction Press, where we're teaching authors how to use AI in any part of their process, and we're publishing AI-forward books on the press. I wear many hats at the Future Fiction Academy. I do lots of stuff, so it's hard to understand what my title is most days, but that's fine. I do a lot and I enjoy what I'm doing. We are probably, by the time this goes live, we'll be deep into our new curriculum at the FFA, and we're teaching people craft, we're teaching people how to manage their business, we're teaching them marketing, we're teaching them code if they want to learn how to make their own stuff as well. So it's a full education at the FFA. We definitely try to teach everybody what they need to know in order to be an author in this new paradigm that we're living in, where AI can do pretty much anything in your business. And that means that you can level up and be a bigger author, or even a publisher, publish your own books, publish other people's books, do whatever it is that you want to do in the publishing space. And that's really cool. And that's what I like doing at the FFA. And I also like writing my own books, of course, as well. And I'm deep into writing a book with Claude right now. I just told him this morning, I'm like, you have to stop doing it in this style. It doesn't always listen, right? So we have to be the ones that are driving the train at all times, being the human in the loop, because sometimes they just don't listen. I keep telling him, don't write like that. And yet he is still writing like that every single time. I think that's the pain of just using AI right around now. Anyway, so that's enough of me rambling. I'm going to hand off to my lovely co-host, as always, Danica Favorite. How are you doing today?
I'm good. Yeah. Feeling those Claude not following instructions pains at the moment. I had an amazing co-work automation and it broke. And I did figure out why it broke and where it broke. But oh my goodness, I do think that sometimes it is like chasing squirrels at a rave, but this is what we signed up for, right? So for those of you who don't know me, I'm Danica Favorite. I'm the community manager at Publish Drive, where we help authors on every stage of their publishing journey, from getting their manuscripts formatted to creating metadata and AI book covers, then getting your books distributed to the widest audience possible. And finally, once your book starts selling, we can help you split your royalties and also do some in-store promos. And definitely in the thick of things. I think by the time this episode launches, we will be into June and we'll be enjoying our summers. And I may even be meeting with the team as we continually wrestle with this whole AI question. And how do we help authors using AI get their books published to the widest variety of stores and maintain our relationships with retailers, respecting retailers, and really trying to figure out what the AI slop is. If you were listening to our last episode where we talked about this idea of the AI slop, and then I already forgot the term that we coined, but this idea of the AI really not just assisting you, but empowering you. There we go. AI empowering you, because there is a difference in the quality, and we want those quality books to come forward and not be drowning in the slop. And so it's something that we as a team are constantly discussing and really trying to figure out the best way to honor people and their processes, and to get those quality books out there, again, to as many people as possible. And so, yeah, I mentioned I was messing with my Claude automation, which was so frustrating, but it's fixed now, or it should be. We'll find out. It's supposed to run here in an hour. And so we'll see. But I'm actually, speaking of summer, planning my summer trips using AI. So hopefully, please let this be over by the time our episode launches. But with all of the stuff happening in Iran, and Europe is talking about running out of jet fuel. And so I had to change what I wanted to do this summer. So I go every summer to Budapest for work. It's fantastic. I love it. We have our big team meeting then. We talk more in depth about the things I was just mentioning. And then I'd like to add on a little trip. Since I'm already in Europe, I pay for myself to go on some fun vacation. And because of the airfare situation and all these regional carriers that I usually use may not be operating, I had to flip and say, what can I do instead? Here's what I want to do. And so I went to ChatGPT and I said, look, here's what I want to do. Given that I can only do the train, or I'm choosing to only do the train, what do you recommend? What do you suggest? And it was amazing because it gave me everything I needed. And it gave me links to sites. It gave me links to different things. And I have some really particular things I want to do. And I said, okay, so what if we did this and we mapped out this? And it did it. And so I'm really excited because still have some things to book, but if all goes well, it's going to be a really fun summer. And I like to share these things because it's so funny the things we don't think about using AI for. And what would have taken me hours of planning, I just literally sat on my phone one day, burp, burp. Oh, cool. Now I have my whole travel plan. So always fun and always interesting to see what AI can do for you. And so, don't have a good segue to today's guest, but Joe is someone who has worked with the FFA from day one and is somebody who's behind the scenes and doing all the programming. And when Elizabeth Ann West says, hey, I want to do this cool thing, she calls Joe up and says, Joe, make this thing. And Joe says, okay. Uh, I know there's a little more nuance to that, but that's usually how the story gets relayed to me. But he really is just a really interesting person and is doing so many cool things with AI. And I was telling Steph, let's see if we could get him on because it would be really interesting to hear what he's doing and some of the interesting things that happen from a programmer side. I talk about how I'm not the programmer. I just go, boop, boop, make this happen, and it happens. But he's the man behind the magic. Welcome, Joe. Joe, please tell us about yourself and how you got involved into this crazy AI world.
Thanks for having me on. So, I've been in the information technology field for a little over 20 plus years, probably the last 8 or so. I've been working as a Salesforce consultant, building out people's Salesforce instances and custom code and attaching them to other programs. And I wanted to write a book. And this was around the time that pseudo-write was starting to come into fruition. This is before Turbo 3.5 came out, probably around the chat GPT, the 3 days. And I remember using that. And I was part of the community over at pseudo-write. And I decided to write a little extension tool in the Chrome browser that kind of keeps track of all your prompts and allows you to kind of enter some information for the variables, and then it would throw it into the template, and then you could take that, kind of copy and paste it into pseudo-write and use that. And so one of the people on pseudo-write who knew Elizabeth decided to talk to Elizabeth and said, hey, you should meet this guy named Joe. He created this cool tool. And so he set up a meeting, and I got in there with Elizabeth. And then the first thing she said is looked at me sternly. And I think she was worried that I was going to try to steal people away from pseudo-write, which I told her, no, that's not it. This is a tool for the community, the same thing that I do for FFA. And so, we talked a little bit about that. And then she gave me some prompting tips, and a few months passed. And then she started her own school, the FFA. She started talking about it. She's going to do the latest and greatest in prompting. And I really wanted to do this, but I kind of, when I write, I just do it as a side thing, as more of a hobby, hadn't published a book. So I was thinking, like, okay, this is something that would be interesting to do, but I can't justify the cost of it as somebody who is just plays with writing, doesn't really do it seriously. But I wanted to. So I asked her, I said, hey, I'll make some tools for the community if you let me join for free. She said, okay, you're on it, you're in. And so from there, I built out a tool called Rexy, which then got adopted. And then, we had kind of a deal going on where I was making tools for the FFA, eventually became one of the founders of the school. And I've just been building tools for the school ever since, and also working on some of the educational programming now as we're revamping that.
Yeah, Joseph is like the father of Rexy. It was so much fun to, at the time, we didn't really have any sequencing tools out there, right? We had nothing. We knew that we wanted to prompt in sequences, like a prompt, get a response, tack that onto another prompt, go back, and then have that kind of automated because what we were doing at the time, we understood the prompting and the kind of responses we could get from that. It's a lot different now that we have thinking models and whatnot, but back then it was like prompt response, and a circular like sequence thing. So we had Joseph build us Rexy, and it was so interesting because we kludged together a bunch of things to get that thing to work, right? It was like Rexy worked on a website, but it hooked into your Notion to grab files from there, and it had access to databases, and that would write back to Notion when you were done. So this is how we got really into Notion, and now I'm a huge Notion fan, and I've mentioned it in previous podcasts many times, so I won't go into that too much. But Joseph was the person who got us Rexy, and over time Joseph became one of the founders and became one of our partners, and now he like heads up lots of the ink and code stuff, the coding stuff that we do on Future Fiction Academy, and then has been teaching people as well, which is great. I love that. Joe has even managed to write a book now, haven't you, Joe?
I did. It's still, I have not published it yet, haven't hit the button. So I did put something out. I was given advice, don't write your anything that you're precious about as your first attempt. So it's been really nice. That was great advice because I'm using the tools and using AI to help with a lot of the drafting and editing, and I've been really just enjoying that process a lot. I feel like it's really amazing how different the landscape has gotten from when I first started to where it is now. And I can already see where it feels like it's going to go next, right? We started out with the tools like where you could formulate maybe a few sentences, a paragraph. And then Rexy was there to try to see if we could stitch together a bunch of paragraphs so we could get maybe a whole chapter out. And then we created our sequencing tools using the different methods that we have right now. But now we're starting to see these more powerful models like the latest Claude Opus 4.7 when it listens to you, and it can produce some really large output that is seemingly coherent, which is really nice. And so I feel like we're not that far off from the point where we're going to be able to tell the LLMs with instructions, this is essentially what I'm looking for. And I feel like it's going to be able to handle a lot of that writing. You always want the human, obviously, to be there so it can execute your vision. But I find it fascinating how powerful the tools have gotten and how interesting that is. And I feel like almost we're getting to a point where some of these other things that you want to do, like editing and so forth, are starting to now become something that the LLMs are capable of doing. And with these new agentic tools and these harnesses that are allowing you to run these tools, it's getting to the point where you're going to be able to almost tell this thing, hey, go out there, make me money. And then you go and write your book on the side.
I think that would be fantastic. I look forward to that day personally. But yeah, I love what you were saying about how that first book attempt isn't a precious book. It's just something to learn on. And I hadn't heard that advice before, but it's something that I'm doing again with my own AI writing experiments is I'm using genres that I've never written in that I hadn't really seen as, oh, I should go for this or whatever. But I have friends who write in the genre and I read a lot of it. So I was like, oh, let me just try here because you're not as emotionally attached to it. It isn't like, oh, it's got to be perfect. It's my magnum opus. No, it's just a book. And so I really like that you did that. So are you going to get more books out there now that you've gotten that first book conquered?
I think it's interesting because if you think about the very beginning, the whole idea of joining the FFA was this idea that I really want to learn the crafting of the prompt so that it can help me be able to actually produce books. And then I found myself now so entrenched in the world of helping authors with tools and methods to be able to write their books that I've actually really slowed down the progress on mine, which I don't think is a bad thing because I actually really enjoy coding. It's like you're taking two passions and putting them together. I like and want to write more, and then I really enjoy coding and being entrepreneurial. So I think being able to put all that together is, for me, the sweet spot. So I enjoy writing, and I also enjoy creating writing tools quite a bit.
I'm with you on that one. I am also slowly working through a book right now. It's like I finally, I think, hit the midpoint of it, but I've been working on it for months because I also really enjoy helping other authors, which is why I do this podcast, which is why I'm part of FFA, why I write my Substack, these sorts of things, because I want to help authors. I see AI as a huge market disruptor. It's a huge market disruptor, and it's going to disrupt not just creative industries, but it's also disrupting everything else as well. Between like the amount of data centers we've got to put in, the corporations who are using it on the back end in order to process data, the medical breakthroughs that we're having right now, it is just all over the place. It is not just affecting creatives. But since I'm an author and I'm a creative, I want to help those people get through this huge disruption in our industry. So I'm also like Joe, and I like to code as well. So it's like I totally understand Joe and where he's coming from. We are not always able to have a ton of extra time to write on the book, but it's nice to have it there and you can go back to it if you need to. And that's what I do. And I'm like, I need a break. I'm going to go work on my book, right? So, yeah, I can see Joe definitely keeping on working on his book and then working on more as time goes on because we have a lot of tools that we've been making that have been helping with a lot of this stuff.
Yeah, and the market tools are getting amazing. I feel like right now with Claude Code, you always had the ability to do the vibe coding, you've heard that term running around for a couple of years, but I think it's recently that the vibe coding has gotten to the point where just somebody with an idea can sit down and just tell the computer, this is what I want, and then it's actually going to execute it in a way that is going to work. Before, people could stitch together little things, but now I feel like we've gotten over the hump. I feel if you're a person, you don't even have to be a coder. If you just want to be able to create your own apps for your own purposes, right? Let's say you want to have a little app to, I don't know, simulate note cards on a corkboard for your writing. That is within the capabilities of anybody who learns the tools and just describes what they want. They don't have to know how to code anymore.
I really love that because, as I've said multiple times on the podcast, I am not the coder. I am not a computer nerd. You should see, it was funny you were talking about the old Rexy and everything, and I still have all of that in my Notion. My Notion is still a hot flaming mess. And, today I went in there and I said, okay, please update because I love it. I've got the Notion with AI. And I said, okay, I've just put all these articles on my trip in here. Please organize this for me. And it did it. So, I'm very happy about the fact that I don't have to know any coding or figure that out. So, what are some tips that you might have for someone like me and some of our listeners who are not the coders? Like, where would you suggest we start in playing around and figuring out some coding stuff that could help us with our writing?
Sure, yeah. So this is something I'm hoping to do a full course on for the FFA in the future. But for right now, what I would advise people to do is you need a pipeline to be able to get yourself from the point where you have your idea to the point where you can deliver on it. Okay. My favorite pipeline involves either the desktop version of Claude Code or Codex from ChatGPT. Both of those allow you to just describe what type of app you want. They work with local files on your hard drive, and they'll create a working program that you can test locally. Then I also like to work with those tools along with another IDE. That IDE could be Cursor, it could be Anti-Gravity, it could be Visual Studio Code. For me, it's Cursor. And that tool makes it easy for me to review the code that's been developed by Claude Code or Codex. And it makes it really easy for me to use a connection to GitHub. So they have this little module that's built into all of those tools that makes it really easy to just see what files have been edited, and then you just click one button and then it'll push it to this repository. And so this repository is just a cloud storage place, stores your code, it'll keep track of the versions. That's not really the most important part. I just like it as a bridge, because then what I also have is there's a service called Railway, and that service allows you to just spin up these applications, these little containers, and they'll look at GitHub and see like, oh, you just updated this. Let me go ahead and redeploy your code. And it also provides a URL for you. So now you have something that you can use on your machine, but also share with everybody, share with the rest of the world. So literally, once you learn that pipeline of kind of those tools and just the simple methods to push the data over, you have everything you need. And it used to be that there was some complication to that. Putting stuff on Railway, you would have to learn the nuance of certain configuration files and other things. And now that doesn't really exist. You just tell Claude Code, here's what I'm planning to do. Can you just create any files that are necessary? And it one-shots it, and it creates those files. So then it just works when you push everything. So there's only a small amount of information, I think, like gaps that need to be bridged before just anybody can copy that pipeline. And then once you have the pipeline down, then you're off to the race and you can create whatever you want.
I was just telling my husband this morning that it used to be that there was like a huge moat between, normal regular people and programmers who knew all of this language, right? They could get on a command line and they're typing away and they're using all these commands and they're doing all this cool stuff. And I was just thinking about like all the Hollywood movies that would get the hacker in there that would do all the crazy stuff. And he's like hacking in all these things. And nowadays you can just go tell Claude to go do something and you can do it in plain language, right? You don't have to know a command line code. You don't have to know how to do PHP. You don't even know how to do Python or anything like this. You can just go ask for it in plain language. Be like, I want a dashboard that's going to show me my word counts every day. And Claude will just build it. Claude will just build it for you and show it to you right there in chat. And then there are ways also, like Joseph was saying, about getting it onto a server so that you can access that from anywhere. That's a great idea, is to have a little pipeline going from Cursor, which is an IDE. We've talked about these IDEs in the past on the podcast. And going to GitHub, and GitHub becomes a place where Railway can pick it up and put it on their own servers and then serve it up to the public. So, I mean, I agree with this because I think more and more people are going to want some sort of web presence that doesn't necessarily have to be WordPress. In the past, if you were an author, before AI, I would have said, go get hosting, get a WordPress instance going, figure out what kind of templates you want, and then put together a website. And then for some people, that was just beyond them because of the fact that WordPress can be sometimes hard to use because it has its own vocabulary. There are plugins, there are themes, and then you have to harden it against being attacked because it is one of the biggest content management systems out there. So everybody loves to hack it. So, and I was just helping a friend with that the other day. So in the past we had to do that, but now you could go ask Claude for a static website that doesn't have a database. It's not going to be hacked. It's pretty hardened, and you can just have it deployed to a website, and then boom, you're set to go. So I love this fact that we have these tools now. Joe's been working with them for quite some time, and he's been building lots of tools for us as well. So that's great too. We don't necessarily have a lot of time to put together both curriculum and to put together tools. So Joe's our tool guy. He's really good at that. But he's also teaching some curriculum at the FFA. So I would love for you to talk about some of the stuff you're putting together there as well.
Yeah, so the idea is going to be with the ink and code, to take authors and empower them to be builders in terms of whether that's with your website, whether that's with little applications that do things. Because again, it's kind of, if you as an author could imagine being able to just have just whatever amount of money you need to hire your own coder to personally follow your instructions to build what you ask for. That is pretty much where we are. That you need to know a little bit about how to kind of connect the pieces together in a way that will allow you to take what the LLM gives you so that you can make it available at large. I'm sure they're going to make that process even easier, probably in another 6 months. But for now, there's just little bits that you need to know that kind of bridge that, and then you can create your own tools and so forth. So that's where I'm focusing, is just looking at the overall tools that are out there and how we can use them and how authors can, take that information and do more with it. And so that's also too with things like Claude co-work, creating skills and things like that. There's just so many ways with the tools that are out there to do things. And it's not even just with words, right? You look at like GPT just came out with their image 2 yesterday. Nothing's crazy. You can literally go in there if you have a paid account. And this also works with Nano Banana from Gemini, although the ChatGPT one is better. And you can take your chapter and just say, hey, I want you to create multiple pages for a graphic novel from my writing. And I'm amazed when we did this. It's like you would see it, it would create it, it looks really good. And then things are consistent. This is what amazed me. I remember doing this with a story, and then I saw the person leaving their house, and it had a couple of bushes or whatever, and they go off and they do something, and then they come back later at night. And when they came back to their house, it still had the two bushes in the right place. And that amazed me because if you know from the earlier days with image generation and stuff, you probably leave that house and you come back and you're living in a mansion or something. Things would just not stay very consistent.
And I think even like when you look at like characters and things like that, like that's been the toughest thing. I did just bite the bullet and hired a cover designer on the series that I'm working on because originally I had an AI cover, didn't love it, sent it to someone, they fixed it, made it pretty for me, and then I was like, okay, but now this is going to be a series and I don't know that this cover is the right vibe for a whole series, which until yesterday you couldn't really get with a consistent thing unless you did a lot of playing around and everything. And now that's fixed. I'm still having the cover designer do it because, as we've said in the podcast as early as our last episode, where it's like, it's either going to cost you time or money. Everything's got that cost. And at this point, I'm like, you know what? For this project, I'm spending money rather than spending time. And I like even what you're talking about with the different ways that people can build their systems and build these apps and things like that. Is if you want to take the time to learn it, it's possible, even for someone like me who doesn't have a lot of skill, or it now becomes cheaper for me to go to someone and say, hey, can I pay you to build this for me? Because that's going to take them less time and less energy. And so it's a win-win on all sides because maybe I will never develop the skills to do this effectively, but somebody in the FFA or elsewhere is going to have the skill to be able to do that for me and do it easily without spending hours and days and months and all of that. So I think it's super exciting that these possibilities are all coming.
Yeah, and for draft sort of stuff, it's really good. You can take your cover that you have right now and drag it into something like ChatGPT with this new image 2 and say, hey, give me 5 variations. And let's say those 5 variations are going to be my sequels. And here's the names and the titles of those and a little bit about what they're about. And you can get some things that look really consistent and good. And maybe they won't be what you can just run to market with, right? You may still have to go back to a designer or something like that, but at least you can be a lot closer when you go back to them and say, hey, look, I've got these. I kind of like them. Here's where they're kind of not doing what I want them to do. And I think it's a huge benefit. And it's just fun. It's just so fun to be
Oh,
able to
yeah,
see things
absolutely.
like you can visualize your characters now, and that just takes a request. And then now you've got pictures to inspire you or to put up on your mood board or whatever you have.
It takes some
Yeah.
ambiguity out of the process, right? So you're able to go in there with a little bit more, with some more ideas about what you want, what you're interested in, and then you're able to communicate better with the other person, which is great. I love having that now as a tool in my back pocket when I need to go and explain myself. I can use visual aids or whatever it may be, which is great. I wanted to touch on the whole software because we produced a lot of software at the FFA for like the last two, plus years. We've had Rexy, we've had Your First Draft, we've made a lot of internal software. And one of the cool things that we realized in the last 6 months was the fact that if we can teach authors how to build their own software, they don't need to be dependent on a third party to give them what they want. So I was just going to focus on the fact that we're teaching people how to do these things in order to empower them and learn how to do the parts of make applications as part of their process for their business, right? So one of the things that Joe's going to be teaching people is how to get started with that. And that is really exciting for me because I want to see more people be empowered to do those kinds of things.
Yeah, with these tools, it really does make it possible for someone to essentially get the same sort of output that they're getting from our tools right now, but with something that they create. That wasn't possible a couple of years ago when, vibe coding started. You still had to have a much higher level of technical proficiency to be able to, get something useful out of it. But nowadays, I feel like if you have somebody who can tell you, here's some things you can do, and show you some patterns. Just with writing, like some people can show you some prompts too that can help with certain things. You can produce your own code. And the bar to produce something that is personally useful is a lot it's a lot lower than what you would have to do if you need it to be used by a lot of different people and if it has to be kind of something that's more commercially viable. Because when you're doing it for yourself, you can update things. You don't have to worry about the server being overloaded or anything like that. So it's really nice because some of these things, oh, you have the sequencer through YFD, and it does a lot, right? But if you yourself wanted to create something to create your own, I don't know, detective noir novels that you're creating, the like miniseries, to create a tool that just does that is definitely within the reach of any author, I would say, who just wants to sit down and just learn some of these tools to be able to create it because the tools are that powerful now that they will help you create your own software.
I think that's so exciting because like everyone has their own process, and we've talked about this a little bit in the past where I personally love seeing other people's prompts and learning from their prompting and taking them. But for me, there's always something in their prompt that I tweak. And that's exactly what you should be doing. You should, like people are like, oh, just give me the magic prompt and I'll make this thing. And then they're disappointed because they don't get the results. And I think that's also going to be true with this software and the different software systems because how many of you have tried something like Sudowrite or Novel Crafter or some of the other softwares out there and been disappointed in the results because you don't get to see the prompt. You don't get to control the prompt and change things around, which is, I mean, that's why the FFA got started because Elizabeth believes very strongly in creatives controlling the prompts and seeing the prompts and seeing the models. And I think for a lot of people, that was not accessible for a long time because I didn't understand it. And now it just blows my mind how different that's becoming, that really anybody who wants to use these tools who've been saying all along, oh, I can't afford this, I can't afford that. Guess what? Like now the ability for you to learn how to do it and do it on your own and do it well, it's here.
Yeah, definitely. It's amazing how far we've come, right? We started with the, creating sentences, then stringing paragraphs together. Then we have tools like Raptorite that went through and allowed you to control the context and turn things off and on easier. So it was much faster than copying and pasting. And that allowed us to produce like chapter sized outputs, I would say, using different methods. And then from there, we went to full sequencing with things like YFD, and now, when you're looking at things like with Claude projects and Claude Cowork, and a lot of people doing things in anti-gravity now, there are ways, like people have already put together their own kind of different types of variations on essentially what YFD is doing. And a lot of them have managed this on their own. And so that's where we came up with the idea of, oh, we should be helping even more authors be able to do this if they want. And since then, the tools have gotten more powerful. So the processes have gotten even easier. So it's just like now it's going to be about showing people, hey, this is what you can do. And here are some of the tools that if you know how to use these specific tools will allow you to accomplish these sort of tasks. But yeah, I'm amazed. We have this thing within the FFA, we call it the Shoujo show, where because people like used to like to show me some of the stuff that they would make, so we just made a whole show out of it. And I am always amazed at what comes out from these authors. Extremely impressed. Like as a, as a person who's a coder, and I'm watching authors going through, and then some have a little bit of a tech background too, but just what they're producing is just, jaw-dropping sort of stuff that they're putting together.
That's
So
so, I love that. That's amazing. So what are you working on now?
my big push right now, I'm working a lot on the new pro membership that we're going to be coming out with over at the FFA. And then from there, I am switching gears into digging into ink and code and just really empowering authors to build their own tools. So on the side, if you're asking me as a side project, like what might I be doing in the same space outside of FFA, I've been coding an application that I'm using. It was that Notecard app I had mentioned earlier. So this idea of I have these note cards. I want to be able to put text on them and images and move them around on a canvas, but then I want to have the large language model there that can construct scenes on these cards. Because when I like to think through a story, I just have these ideas for the tentpole events of, oh, okay, this is a really cool idea. This is an idea. These are the things I like. And so I want to throw them all there, but I find it really difficult to do in just like a flat out just writing software like Raptorite or something like that, just to have these kind of random fragments. So to me, if I have the random fragments, I want something equivalent to having note cards that I can move around. So I made the actual visual of that. And it's awesome because I am terrible at front end UI, kind of JavaScript, being able to move things around. Even though I have a programming background, I'm terrible at that. But it doesn't matter today, right? I was able to just tell Claude Code, hey, this is what I want to do. Here are some of my ideas. I would like it all to maintain inside the client of the browser so that I don't have to spin up a server or anything like that. What do you think of my idea? So that's usually what I'll do is I'll vet my idea. I'll ask it and it'll come back and it always tells me, hey, this amazing idea, even if it's not amazing. But it will then put in some information about these are some opportunities that you have to maybe fix it, or maybe this would work a little bit better. And then at that point, it'll ask me, hey, do you want me to whip this up? And I say, yes, go ahead and do it. And then it puts something there, and then I can see it, and I can see, okay, this part I like, this part I don't. And then I can just iterate just through standard language. I'm not even looking at the code. I used to look at the code when I did vibe coding. I used to look at every line of code that came out to make sure it was okay. Now I'm finding that even as a coder, I don't look at the code. I just don't look at the code. I just ask for it, I get it, and then I push it, but I don't look at it, not very often.
Me neither.
Yeah.
Especially now that it can write to 5, 6, 10 documents like all at once. It's like I don't even necessarily know where it's putting new code every time I ask for something, right? But I will have to open up a specific extra document that shows me its implementation plan and the steps that it took. I can actually go back and look it through the conversation and open up the thinking section so that I can see that it was like, oh, I think I need to put this in styles, and then I need to add this thing to the JavaScript so I can see where it went and did things. But I don't proof it as much anymore because Claude has just gotten that good, and so has GPT Codex now. They're at the point where where Anthropic is hiding models from us because they're so good at code that they could probably break into anything, right? So we're now at this point, this tipping point when it comes to code, where the models can do just about anything, and you can ask for it in natural language. You don't have to say, you need to build this Python script to do this, that, or the other thing. You can say, I want this thing, and it will go off and it will make that decision about which programming language, those sorts of things, how it's going to structure the files, all of that. You don't have to do that anymore. I love that. It's so great because it just takes a huge load off your shoulders and allows you to iterate like what Joe's doing, because he'll work on his project and he'll come up with a new idea and present it to the AI, and it will go off and execute that idea, right?
Yeah, it's getting really neat. I would say about 30% of the time, like I'll go through and I'll ask it how it wants to do it because I like to have some control over the design approach for what it's going to take. And I would say about 6 or 7 out of 10 times, I will have my specific approach that I'll want it to take, which may or may not be what it's chosen. Not that it chooses bad, but I just want to do something that I think is a little bit better. Maybe it wants to roll something up, and I'm like, no, I think you should just use this library I know about. I think that would be a little bit more efficient. But what I've found is in a lot of cases, and it's happening more and more often, and it's scary, is that I would say 3 out of 2 out of 3, 2 or 3 out of 10 times, it'll come up with ideas. And those ideas, some of them will be better than I know I could have thought about or come up with myself if I just sat there in the afternoon, just thinking through how am I going to do this. And it will choose the best one of those ideas. It's the way it's ranking the ideas. It knows from my perspective which one is probably the best decision. It's almost always choosing that. So I would say 20 or 30% of the time, it's making superior design decisions to what I would make as somebody who's been doing this for 15 years, 20 years. And so it makes me think that it's not going to be too long until I can probably trust it to make, in a lot of cases, better decisions about developing these apps than I can, which means that for as an author, we're not that far from being able to just have a little bot that we can say, hey, I need this program, and then do this research because this is what I'm looking to do, and create this program for me to help me write or whatever your process you want it to do. And it's going to be able to go out there and just do that process for you without you having to help like you have to now with the pipeline, right? You won't even have to help. It'll just do it, come back to you. You give it feedback probably through your phone, right? You probably won't even have to be sitting there anymore. And then eventually you'll just have these tools, things that it would take people months to build, built for you while you're drinking your coffee.
I am so looking forward to that. And it was great. Even this morning, I was in a meeting and I had a whole Claude thing just running in the background, and I'm just sitting here doing my thing. I don't have anything going now because it's recording, and I don't want it to break my poor little baby computer with all that. But it is nice because you can just set it here, do this thing, and you're off doing something else, which is so nice. So as we're wrapping up, I want to talk about favorite AI tools and what your favorite is, but I want to give you a little bit of a twist because we've talked about a lot of tools. So, do you have a place of tools that, number one, talk about your personal favorite, but I also would love to hear some recommendations for maybe someone who isn't that experienced with coding, where you would recommend they start, or a good first tool or something like that. But please also tell us about your favorites.
Yeah, I think right now, the ones I'm really liking, if we're talking about coding and even working on some story elements, I really enjoy the Claude desktop and kind of ChatGPT's desktop, the Codex. Those two I think are really nice. They work really well and they're really powerful, and you can do a whole lot with them. That's what I would say. If somebody was going to be starting as an author, I would just say Claude Desktop, right? That one, it just has so many features in there. The only thing it's missing really is the image stuff, right? They really stayed out of the image game. And for that, I think, which I think it's great, the way that the new images from Nano Banana and from ChatGPT's image model, what they can do in terms of taking content and creating these amazing infographics, or taking your stuff and making it into, some graphic novelizations and other things. It's just super fun. So if it's from an image perspective, it's going to be ChatGPT and Gemini for the Nano Banana. And if we're talking about just general productivity and coding, then we're talking Claude Desktop and Codex on my machine, because there is a cloud version of it, but having it on your machine makes it much more powerful. And it's getting more powerful every day. It's almost to the point now where some of these features are available where they'll actually take control of your computer and do some tasks for you.
That's what I want Claude to be doing. Come do my work for me, Claude. Click on these links, download these things. That's what I need Claude to be doing right now. That's awesome. I'm glad that we are able to give people a place to start, especially with some of these tools. There's also plenty of stuff on YouTube, not even just Future Fiction Academy, although we do have plenty of videos on YouTube talking about coding, talking about the way we use these tools. We have some ink and code videos on the FFA channel too that might interest people if they listen to this podcast and they're like, oh, I kind of want to go check that out. They could go check that out on the Future Fiction Academy YouTube channel. But also, I want to just point out that there are plenty of YouTube creators as well that are just showing the basics about these things, like what is GitHub. You don't necessarily have to go and have somebody teach that to you. You can go watch a few YouTube videos on it, get familiarized with these tools. If you decide to do Cursor or anti-gravity, there are plenty of tutorials on those as well on YouTube. So like Joe has given us a great start there. So I'm hoping that people will want to go check that out when they listen to this. And so before we go, I want to make sure that we give anybody any kind of URLs or where to find you, Joe, besides the Future Fiction Academy. Where can
Oh,
people
no.
find you?
The best place is to find me is the Future Fiction Academy. Yeah, so there's no special page for me where I'm advertising myself or anything like that. But yeah,
Perfect.
just come on down, say hello if you're in the FFA. I'm always there in the Discord. And then I just wanted to throw out there too, you were mentioning some of the YouTube stuff. I think if people are interested in the slightly bigger tech dives, Matt Wolf and Matthew Berman, those are both interesting because they always talk about what's the latest happening in AI. And I usually think it's pretty easy to see that and then see, oh, here's how this could connect to doing something in writing or something useful for authors.
Yeah, I love Matt Wolf too. I watch his videos every week to get caught up on what's going on in AI. So that is a definite must watch every single week. Thanks for that. I totally forgot about that. So I'm going to put those links as well as any other links that we talked about, tools we talked about in the notes. Anybody who's been listening, come by bravenewbookshelf.com, check out the show notes for this particular episode. Like I said, I'll put everything in there for us as I usually do. And you can subscribe to the show notes by hitting subscribe at the top of the page. Come by, click it, give us your email address. We'll send you the show notes the day after the show goes live. Danica, anything else we want to talk about?
I really did appreciate the reminder of where you can find the free information, because I think that we all feel very passionately about the fact that we want people to be able to do and learn AI at whatever stage financially you are. And so please check out those free resources. And I know FFA's got some good free resources. Publish Drive also has some ways to start free. And we have been very remiss, and we're updating all of this, but please take a look at the sponsor page on the website, because we do have special deals and offers from both FFA and Publish Drive for our listeners. So make sure you take advantage of that. And also remember to like and subscribe to Brave New Bookshelf on Facebook, YouTube, and then all of the socials for FFA, Future Fiction Press, and Publish Drive. And yeah, follow us everywhere, because we are all giving a lot of really great information. And if there is a topic that we haven't covered or something you'd like to see from any of us, particularly as we're winding down the season and I'll start looking to book new guests, make sure you reach out, send us an email, and let us know what other things you want us to cover, talk about, share, because we do want this to be a really good resource for everyone.
We want to hear from you. So come by and either leave a comment, or you can hit us on one of the social media channels. You could also leave a comment on YouTube on one of the videos. If anything struck your fancy and you thought, hey, I really want to hear more about that, let us know. We're excited to talk to more people about all of these things, definitely. So thank you again, Joe, for being here and talking with us today. Really appreciate it. Everybody else, thank you for being here, and we'll see you guys in the next week's episode. Okay, bye.
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 Thanks for joining us on the Brave New Bookshelf. Be sure to like and subscribe to us on YouTube and your favorite podcast app. You can also visit us at bravenewbookshelf.com, sign up for our newsletter, and get all the show notes.